Welcome, Lovonya members. It's Thursday, September 26th, and we have the privilege of being led in another amazing conversation by Dr. Ann. I'm here as a student and participant today to support the conversation and looking forward to what Dr. Ann has to share with us. So, Dr. Ann, take it away.
Well, thank you, Patter. I always have to go back and see what I wrote about the blurb. What am I going to talk about today? But I have been looking over this, and I came up with this topic last month, and then we didn't do it. So this month we are going to talk about the body's energy fields, and we're going to go at it in many different ways. We're going to talk about how important it is to understand our bodies and the fact that we are all energy. And I'm going to give you some tips as we look at the body energy from different vantage points. We're going to look at the body's voltage, learn its language, and talk about the connections between the emotions and physical ailments. I'm going to talk about some case studies. And if you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions also. So let's do this. So like I said, I came up with this topic about a month ago, and just in the last day or two, I've come across two different webinars that I have looked at about body energy. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And one of the things I had mentioned a little bit in another workshop that I did was the fact that people with electrohypersensitivity are very affected by EMFs. They can't be around cell phones and Wi-Fi and stuff like that. And that's because EMFs, the voltage, the frequency of electromagnetic frequencies, open what are called voltage gated calcium channels. Now, our cells have these channels, and they're run by voltage. They're energetic. They turn off, they open and close, and they put calcium into where the body needs calcium. But when we're around EMFs too much and people get hypersensitive over time, these voltage gated calcium channels start opening more than they should and letting more calcium go into the blood system, into the tissues. And that gives you all kinds of negative symptoms, and it really bogs you down. The other thing that I saw on another website, and that's kind of a review of something I had mentioned before, but I just wanted to clarify. This other thing was on treating cancer and treating a lot of autoimmune disorders. And it was all about light. And of course, light is energy. And light being something that amps up our bodies. And I had heard a long time ago that humans have a system when we utilize sunlight that is very similar to plants doing photosynthesis. Ours is a little bit different than that, but we definitely take the sun frequency and we change it so that our body can use it. And they're talking more about this now because when they're doing stem cell therapy, whether it's for cancer or whatever they use it for, because there's so many applications for that now. The stem cells are strengthened and they're activated if you charge them with light. And in both of these cases that I've just mentioned, the EMFs and the voltage gated calcium channels and the stem cells being strengthened and amped up by light, they mentioned these totally different webinars, how important it is to use structured water, because that nurtures all the cells in the body and helps both of these systems to regulate and balance themselves. So I had to throw that in here since all of us are becoming more and more structured water. I'll drink to that. Structured water specialist.
And I wonder if you have any thoughts about whether distilled might help us with that excess calcium? I've been tracking this issue kind of closely. I don't remember which doctor I was listening to, but what they said was, or what I heard was, that every muscle takes calcium to open and magnesium to close.
Uh-huh.
And since I heard that, I started noticing that one of my challenges athletically is that it feels like when I really exert and go hard, like the muscles open and they don't close. And so I've started doing topical magnesium and more. You can see my water's a little bit discolored because I've got so much fulvic in it. And then I started experimenting with distilled, and my experiment is just getting going. Like I'm just beginning to notice, but I feel like we're being calcified, and so taking out organic, inorganic minerals, like that whole thing is of interest to me. Have you studied that part of it?
Not exactly the way you're wording it. The calcium magnesium balance is definitely something that's important. So, if you do have aches and pains or fibromyalgia or EHS, electrohypersensitivity, you really need to take more magnesium to balance out that calcium stuff. Now, the thing with distilled water is wonderful and it kind of creates this vacuum. However, if you overdo with distilled water, you may be kind of helping to support evening that out a little bit or washing out some of the calcium, but you're going to be missing out on all the other minerals.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anytime you use distilled water, you need to put in the mineral drops.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. I usually before I get clarity that I publish on my website or make recommendations to people, I test with myself. And one structured water device, I tested for 2 years before I recommended it. So I'm in no hurry with these things. I just kind of want to know where to focus my attention to notice what's going on. And
Right.
you know,
Well, way back in the early 80s, when I was married to a chiropractor, we had two distillers in our house. And so, we were hooked up to city water and all the water came through these distillers. And, I don't think we were putting the minerals back in. And I'll tell you, there's a major difference between what I felt with that water versus the structured water that I drink now.
mhm.
I mean, the structured water is so much better.
Do you remember any characteristics of how you felt on distilled? I know it was a while back,
I
so
got really sick. That's when I started the autoimmune disorders.
interesting. I had
Yeah.
this similar thing where I spent 8 years on RO, and I thought I was doing the greatest thing, like really nailing purity. And those are the 8 sickest years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not blaming the water. I just like who I was that chose RO. That guy did not get along well in the world. He had a hard time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything is a big balancing act, and nature does it best. And nature, if we're really using structured water that's really good water, even if it's reverse osmosis and with a little bit of the minerals dropped back in and then put through our little structured water device, that is alive. That is real. Where distilled, it goes up, it comes back down, and it's a different form. And it's not bad. It's purer than drinking city water. But what
Part,
I was drinking
yeah.
was
Part of what caught me as beneficial in that the distill goes up and it comes back down is that it occurred to me that that's part of the hydrological cycle. Like there's nothing about RO that seems natural to me, but distilled does in some way
yeah.
um, have a natural feel to it. So I'm learning. I also saw a pretty powerful slide produced by Dr. Henry Ely from the Energetic Health Institute. And what he did was measure and report, and he was showing this is how much minerals you want to get on a daily basis. And if your water is mineralized and you drink the recommended daily allowance of water, somewhere in a couple liters a day, and he showed that you're only going to get about 5% of your minerals from the water. And while I think that that's compelling data from a absolute perspective, it doesn't speak to the energetics of water of minerals that's in water versus minerals that are added, which has more of a man-made component to it. So I take it at face value. Like, okay, yeah, I should be getting my minerals more from my diet than from my water, but still, is there a specialness to the quality of the minerals that come from the water? I'm curious. It's an investigation for me.
Well, and then the whole other debate, other side of it is minerals. You can't just drop a bunch of rocks in the water and expect that the body can assimilate it.
Yeah.
So the best ways to get minerals is through plants, because they'll break down the rocks for us, and then we get the minerals directly from plants.
Yeah.
So
Well, maybe there's a point of agreement and some certainty. It's like if you're eating a diverse plant-rich diet that includes, a good amount of those things and it's growing in good soil, that's probably the preponderance of your minerals.
right. And I just wonder if the Global Healing Group with Ely and group and artists and that gang, I just wonder if they will come out with, if they don't already have it, their own natural minerals that would be plant-based minerals.
Well, that right there is a great idea. That's who I was with when I just traveled to the mainland, and
Right, right.
I could ask them for that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're continuing to come out with new things, and theirs is the cleanest stuff I've tried.
mhm. Yeah, that's a
So
great idea.
yeah, tell them I sent you.
All right. All right.
All right. Okay. So let's see. Before I leave this whole idea of lighting up your cells, the voltage to heighten the energy of your stem cells, I want to put in a little tiny plug for myself. Now, for another product that's really, really good that I would recommend that you check out the link I've just put in the chat. That takes you to a landing page where there's a device called the Jade Vitality far infrared heating pads and light pads. And these are tools that I've used. I have one of the full body pads that I have people lie on before I do acupuncture on them. And sometimes I don't even need acupuncture because it helps to balance the meridians so nicely. But, they got knee pads and back pads and a neck pad and they have jade. That's why the name Jade Vitality. But they have jade and tourmaline stones, and they do heat up, but it doesn't emit a lot of EMFs, which makes it real different than most quote saunas and heating pads. So
That's,
just FYI, if you're interested, they've just lowered the price considerably. So
and we
it's
appreciate the research that you do. And for those that are watching the replay, I'm going to put Anne's link in the metadata underneath the video. So if you just go underneath the video, the link will be there. For those that are live, you can grab it from the chat.
okay. And there are just a lot of light devices out there. I use some that are for pain only. But these jade things, I mean, I go lie on my pad a lot when I'm crooked. Okay, so if you've ever done any kind of energy therapy, or you've done yoga, or you've worked with any of the Eastern approaches to the body, mind, spirit, you're familiar with yin and yang. And I used to kind of think, I could go either way, yin, yang, blah, blah, blah. But it's definitely something that whether you're right-handed or left-handed doesn't matter. You're taking in energy on your left side and you're letting it out on your right. Now, a lot of energy healers can emit the healing out of both hands, but it is a conscious, this is what I'm doing. Naturally, it would go in. And that is why so often you'll notice that one side of your body is falling apart more than the other side of the body. Have any of you experienced that? I know that, years ago, I noticed that my whole right side was just, my shoulder was out and my knee was out and my ankle was out, and I thought, what's going on? Well, I realized I was approaching life in a very yang way, which is pushing and pulling and making it happen. And I was a very young corporate manager, and I felt like I had to do that to make it work. So then, you have to, once you realize that. And the other side is if you're just letting people walk all over you, or you're taking in too much, or you're living a very stressful life and you're starting to fall apart on the other side, maybe you're taking in too many other people's their worries and their problems, and the world is going down the pits. And, so it's good for you to notice how your body is handling this dance of energy, so that you don't go one side, oh, I was too high on this side, so let's go way over here. No, you got to stay in balance. You don't want to be out of control too much. And it's interesting, I don't know how many of you work with people on a one-on-one basis, but there's so many different kind of personalities, and everybody has their own experience. And I have a disabled veteran in my practice right now that I'm working with for post-traumatic stress. And, I was trying to help him learn how to use his energy medicine and do it on himself. And it was like, I'm in control here. I'm the warrior. Don't tell me what to do. So you kind of have to, but on the other side, he's a victim. Oh, they're trying to get into my head, blah, blah, blah. So you have to, this balance is very interesting, how people try to control life, but that's a yang thing. That's the right side of the body. The yin is, okay, let's surrender. Let's trust. Let's do everything we can. Let's be aware, but let's get out of the way. Okay. Society kind of teaches us to be victims and to give them control. They have mandates and dictates. And, we're living right now in a society where we've just gone through shot mandates and centralized medicine and fluoride in the water, which they're just taking to the government, and who are admitting it's not good. Maybe there's hope that they'll get it out of the system. Glyphosate, GMOs in the food, geoengineering, metals in the sky, smart meters on the houses. There are ways that we can push back against that, but we're living in a society that's used to pushing things on us, but we haven't known how to stand up and go, wait a minute, if you can prove that this doesn't work right, or this is dangerous for me, I can charge you for doing that to me. And that's where there's something called a notice of liability that a lot of people are sending to the people that are pulling the strings. And it's starting to make some difference. So it's good. It's all positive. So again, that has to do with power. And that is more of a let's utilize our personal power and use our minds, use our spirits to go forward and to accept what we accept, but not to accept the things that we know intrinsically are not good for us. Okay. And Bill Gates summed it up really well when he said, well, our Constitution gives us a notion of rights. And those are his exact words, instead of Bill of Rights. Good old Bill. Okay, so one of the things when we're struggling with this power and victim and who's in control and all that, we can tap on the points above and below our mouth, because this is the governing vessel meridian that goes all the way down to our tailbone. And then this one is the conception vessel or the central meridian. And when you're tapping on both of those, they both relate to your personal power and your ability to make the conscious decisions of utilizing your personal power or allowing it to be taken or given away. Nobody's really a victim. On some level, you have made an agreement, maybe with living in society, maybe with believing that the government knows everything that's best for us, maybe, whatever it is. But there may be a reason that you haven't identified that you have given permission for certain things, because really nobody's a victim. And if you think you are, these are good points to amp up your own personal power, which is third chakra energy, and also to balance so that you can utilize that power, not take it away from somebody else, but not give it inappropriately either. All right. And who can tell me what the main emotion that's going around these days is? That they're really amping up in the news and where they're focusing their attention.
Is it anxiety?
Well, it's fear, which
Fear.
leads to anxiety. Yeah, which is false evidence appearing real, right? FEAR. But fear really depletes us of our energy. It just pulls us together. So here I am sitting on a mountain in the top of Georgia, waiting for this monster hurricane that's coming up my way. It's like we may not even get any more rain, but we're prepared. We'll have wind or we'll have rain, but everybody's going, oh, are you prepared? Are you leaving town tomorrow? Are you, it's like, yeah, whatever. Speaking of which, my cat is knocking on the door right now, but I want you hang on just a second. He doesn't do this very often. Okay.
A persistent animal needs to be stopped for. I hate it when Blue is telling me I got to do something during one of these calls. So I'm glad she's letting her cat in. And I'm glad Blue's lying on the floor and being quiet.
That's my in and out cat. And he doesn't usually go out in the rain, but he wanted to be an adventure cat today. So it's raining. So thank you. Thank you. So we're all familiar with the body, mind, spirit. And as a naturopath, that's kind of my bailiwick. I'm not just looking at the body, or just the mind as a psychologist, or my spirit, which, is so much a driver of all of the above. But everything is energy. So, that is what connects the body, mind, and the spirit. And our spiritual practice, no matter what it is, what it looks like. I dated a scientist years ago who wasn't into anything, quote, woo woo. He didn't meditate, but he loved to fish. And he'd go out in his little boat and just sit there with his fishing pole for hours and hours. I said, well, you meditate. That is your practice. You get out there in the nature, in the silence, and it brings you together. So, whatever your bent is, you can do it your way. And that's what's so important. Okay, so years ago, I went to a naturopathic conference and I met that guy who is Dr. Jerry Tennant. He's an MD, and he had stage 4 cancer, and they told him to go home and die. And what he did was he ended up going home and having a root canal taken out, which was really messing up his body voltage. And then he wrote this book. Can you read that?
Yeah, Healing is Voltage, the handbook.
And it's a really big book, and it's got all kinds of information. And he has created a device by Jerry Tennant, and um, it is one of those energy devices. It's a little bit of like electricity, but it works with the voltage of the body for healing and pain control. If you really want to get into electricity and energy and how the body and the world works, this is a great book. It's by somebody I've followed for years, Arthur Furstenberg, who is a leader in keeping 5G out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. He took it all the way to the Supreme Court, but he's a PhD and he's done his homework. This is another big book, and boy, he goes into every single little point, goes way back to where electricity that was used for healing was static electricity. What are you what are you doing, Marcia? You want me to put it up higher or what? Oh, you're trying up higher? Oh, Furstenberg, Arthur Furstenberg. Okay. So he went all the way back to when they really were using static electricity. And then we all know the story of Benjamin Franklin, the key that went up the kite string. Well, Benjamin Franklin was playing with all kinds of different energy, and they were using static electricity way back in the 1700s for healing purposes. And I think it probably killed some people, but it made some people feel better. But in his later life, Benjamin Franklin became electro hypersensitive, so he couldn't be around any kind of electricity. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but this is very, very interesting if you want to really get into power in an electrical sense, but it's power from the cosmos, from the planet, from man-made sources, the good, the bad, how the negative ions, the positive ions, what the difference is, all that kind of stuff.
Arthur Furstenberg publishes a very good newsletter. I feel like I've been on it for like 5 or 6 years, and
Yeah.
the stories that he puts together are just so compelling, and the data that he shares. I mean, he's a really, really profound researcher and a great storyteller. And I mean, he's just really clear. We need to stop using our cell phones.
Well, he has a whole movement of people that have just given him up.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he is. And the thing is, he's so well connected to people all over the world that send their stories. I've got birds dropping ever since they put up the cell tower, or going through the shipping channel. All the migrating birds have stopped, doing their nests along the shipping channel on these islands, or things like that we don't think about. I've got a friend that raises bees, and she's just up the hill on a mountain, just up from 5G tower. And she lost one. She had two hives. One of them completely died at the end of last summer, and she went in to gather honey at the end of this season with her new group of bees, and they didn't make enough honey even to get themselves through the winter. So she can't, she's not going to harvest anything. She's going to leave it for them. But, I've been working with her she's got a small tower, but she still is having problems. I mean, 5G tower is a big thing right outside, just down the hill. Okay, so voltage outside our body, we've got the EMFs that we're being bombarded by. Some people are saying, well, I was fine until 2019, 2020, and that's when they activated the orbiting satellites, and that's when they started turning on the 5G cell towers here in this country. And our bodies do relate to that, not in a good way. And that's why it's so important to drink more water. And we've just got to have tons and tons of water, because we're like big batteries and we're going to dry up, and then nothing in our, none of our cells can activate. Okay. Sunlight obviously is a really important thing. We need to get out there and allow our body to be rejuvenated and be amplified by the sun. And this whole idea of dimming the sun in the name of global warming remediation is crazy, because that's really not good. Our location on a planet, obviously, a lot of things are changing on our planet, but even the ley lines. I was telling Patrick, I just had my house balanced for using biogeometry, and you've probably heard Nico talk about that. And I didn't get this through Nico, I got it from a totally different source. But believe me, I felt the energy moving when they found two big crossed ley lines in my house. And once she blocked those and put the devices she needed in the house, it was wonderful. And even though I've got 3 cosmic towers that are great, she said, you wouldn't even, you'd be really, really sick if you didn't have the cosmic towers. But she said there are a couple aspects that those are not covering, that using the biogeometry in the house and putting little symbols on everything. And actually now I've got some symbols that I wear, and this really helps me when I go into groups with cell phones and I can't carry my 220 with me. Okay, there's still outside, voltage. How many of you like to have scent in your house, or like to have scent on your detergent or your cosmetics or your deodorants or your candles or whatever? You got to be really careful what kind of scents you have. And I could be in the grocery store and smell somebody in the next aisle over that has phthalates in their laundry detergent, which is the artificial chemicals that they have put in to add some sort of a scent. Phthalates are neurotoxins, and they have a voltage. They hit our olfactory nerve, which it's hardwired right into our brain. And that is so dangerous. I've got one case I want to tell you about. I got a client who had to stop working because she was so sick. And she said, and by the way, I live with my mother and she's been bedridden for weeks. And, like the first thing I asked her, I said, well, do you have any scents in your house? And she goes, what are you talking about? I said, like any of those plug-in Glade things that deodorize your house or anything. She goes, well, yeah, why? I said, unplug those right away. And I explained to her what I've just said. And within a day, she was up and out of bed. And a couple of days, she was back at work. And then her mother got well. So phthalates will really lay you low. They just suck your energy. Okay, lots of chemicals can do that. Okay, then there are inside things that cause us to have problems with our energy and our voltage. And that includes the people we have around us. We all have a few of those people, right? And it's up to us to understand how much of that person to allow in to take in, and how to protect ourselves and protect our energy center when we're around those individuals. And I know this vet that I've been working with is a very sweet guy. He's got very nice manners. He's a gentleman. But when he gets ticked about the things that he feels that are bombarding his mind and the psychic attacks. He just his language gets horrible and he just turns into a whole different person. And I got psychically attacked by him just because I was in the way. Not that he was trying to come after me, but I got damaged. I said, I don't know if I can work with him anymore. But now that I understand that, I can push him back and I can say, okay, you don't need to go there now. And so we can do that and we can understand who around us might be energy vampires, who are the people that we do an even energy dance with, and who are the ones that sap our energy and make us tired when we're not there. Something that is also within our power to change is our diet. Anything that we drink or we eat or we breathe comes into our body and changes our energy, our mood, our voltage, our health. And that includes GMOs, that includes injections, any kind of chemicals. So, and, the kind of diet, the kind of food we're eating. Okay, then let's talk about the body's language. Okay, we've looked at all the external and the internal kinds of things that we can control or not control around our environment. But what are the symptoms? Well, we've got mood, we've got emotional symptoms, we've got mental symptoms. I know that if I'm around somebody's cell phone too long and I'm not protected, I come home and I'm just like, oh, what was I supposed to do today? It's just like all my priorities go down the tube. I can't really focus. It's very frustrating and it's scary because it's like, am I losing my mind? But it's just being around the EMFs for me. Okay, symptoms, that could be mental, psychological. When we look at the negative side of things instead of the positive side because of the energy we've been around. And physically, our bodies can start to fall apart. We can get aches and pains. We can lose our energy. We can start a downward spiral, and it can impact our immune system. And these are all things that the body uses as a language to try to get our attention. And so when you have a symptom, the typical allopathic approach is to mask the symptom. Oh, you don't want to hurt there. Let's just take a pain pill. Oh, let's turn that off. Well, what is the body saying? Until you've identified what the body is trying to tell you, why shut it up? Because it's just going to come back with another symptom until it does get your attention. So that is, what I like to tell people. You might live with a little bit more pain, but let's identify what is happening here, what your body's trying to tell you. So rather than compare your body's calls for help with just somebody else that has similar calls for help and then mask it or treat it and, diagnose it, put it in a box with a lot of other people and give it something to shut up the voice of the body. Look at what your unique body is actually saying. Do you need to go outside? Do you need some earthing? Do you need to go walk barefooted in the grass? Do you need to be out in the sunshine an hour tomorrow? Do you need to get rid of that piece of chocolate that you eat every night before you think you're going to go to sleep and it keeps you awake? Just whatever it is, your body better than anybody else, no matter whether they have a white coat on or not. You can learn that language of your body, and you don't have to be put into a box with other people because your story is unique, and you need to look for your own root causes as to what might be going on and why your body's trying to get your attention. And that is why I think we really need to put our foot down and cancel all the mandates and all this intervention by the WHO that thinks they can mandate something for the whole planet that isn't going to be good for every individual. It can't be because every body is unique and we all have our own energy profile. Okay, one size does not fit all. Okay, so everything can be managed by you and healed by your body. The power that made the body can heal the body. Nature, divinity knows how to balance. It's when we get in the way and we try to use a chemical or an intervention that's artificial that we have the problems. But if we leave it to nature, things will take care of itself. We don't have a lack of raw materials on this planet. We don't have a major issue that's going to kill the planet in 10 years or kill all the people unless we allow it to happen by all the chemicals that are still being put on it. So when we learn the truth about power and energy and how to use it, then we can get back in balance. So some of the things that have to do with us being in balance have to do with genetics. Okay, some people get on the genetics bandwagon and go, oh, well, I've got that gene, so that means I'm going to get blah, blah, blah. Well, genetics has maybe 15% of the impact of something happening in your body. And you can manage it with epigenetics if you learn about your own genetic code and what your genes want you to do. What will make your genes weak? What will make them strong? What will bring out the negative aspect of a variant versus the positive aspect? So once you understand this, you can't be scared by your genetics. It's a beautiful landscape, and it's again really unique to just you. There are a lot of people that are having trouble detoxing because we live in such a toxic environment. And the main genes that have to do there are the MTHFR genes, and they're in charge of methylating and breaking down chemicals and utilizing vitamin B and other main vitamins. And if they're dirty genes, then you have trouble being in balance. And I'm getting my book here on understanding your dirty genes. This is a great book by Ben Lynch, who I've studied with. And this talks about how you're born with a certain genetic profile, but your lifestyle and your choices and the environment you're living in can also impact those genes and make them dirty. And then you're going to have some negative things. So you don't need to immediately say, oh, I've got genetic propensity for cancer in my family and I'm going to die of cancer. No, you're not going to die of cancer if you manage it. But if you believe that, yeah, you're going to die of cancer because of, mind over matter. All right. Then there's another thing that's really important. How many of you know about the vagus nerve? The direct connection between the gut and the brain, the gut, the brain, the gut, the brain. Okay, so I wanted to learn more. There are a bunch of books written about the vagus nerves, workbooks, how to, know how to activate the vagus nerve. And that's a very powerful link in the quote, talk about power in your body. Because in an emergency situation, like you're on a plane and the plane's going along and all of a sudden you hit turbulence and the plane starts to crash and it's going down in a nosedive. Well, a lot of people may just pass out and die on the spot. And that's what the vagus nerve does. It just shuts you off. And it is very, very powerful. All right. So Here's another really good book about energy. Neil Nathan is known for his work with people that have been poisoned by mold. And so he's a good one to follow. He's retired. He's not in clinical practice anymore, but he's got some great books out. So you might want to, check that out if you think mold poisoning is something that has made you chronically ill, because that is really a bad poison. So that's just one of his books. Here's another vagus nerve book, if you're interested. Can you see that? Stacy Rosenberg. Okay. And again, it's just how important it is to eat right and allow what is it, 300 million, I think is the number, I might be off, but we've got so much more genetic material in our gut that isn't human that's running the show. And that's what speaks up the vagus nerve to our brain and impacts our mood and our energy level and our libido and everything else. And so once we understand how to work with that vagus nerve and to keep our gut bugs happy and healthy and working together, that is pretty amazing. This is somebody I met years ago, neat lady, Deborah Green. And this is an older book, but it's really, really good. Endless Energy, about personal practices to amp up your energy. And she used to do a lot of webinars and talks and stuff. I haven't seen her recently, but this is a good book. And she's a really neat lady. Okay. Sometimes I think about once a year, they have a Healing with Vibration Summit online. And, you can these are all the transcripts. I'd rather watch the transcripts than spend all the time listening to them talk. So, check that out. Get on the lists for something like that. This was put out, let's see, that's by Health Means. If you want to get connected with that, I'm an affiliate of Health Means. I used to send out links of all their different things. I don't do that much anymore. I'm too busy. But that is really good, because that healing with vibration, that not only gives you the little tools that I talk about sometimes in the tapping and how to use the meridian, but it also takes you way beyond that. The tools to use, like, maybe the light tools and it just, it kind of blows up what we're basically talking about a little bit today, and really puts the meat in it. Okay. And then we all know about our mitochondria, right? These little guys used to be bacteria that were living in conjunction with our cells, but they weren't in our cells until sometime during our evolutionary process. They decided to take a ride. So our cells have the mitochondria, which are still little separate entities inside of our cells that we have to keep healthy, because this is where the energy in the cell comes from. And we got to feed them right, and we've got to light them up with sunlight, and we've got to nurture them with structured water, and just keep from poisoning them, or else we will have chronic illness, age faster, and kick the bucket sooner. So, these are all things that are part of this picture. All right. So, energy tools. Okay. I heard a guy from Ireland one day talking about the meridians and how you can see them. And they're starting to be able to see them on MRIs now. Just, oh, look at that channel. What's that? Well, that's a meridian. That's your energy channel. But basically what he said, and it made total sense, was if you've got a little tiny one of those little micro cameras and you go in, we've all seen internal, the operation of, there's the heart, there's the lungs, there's whatever, this little eyeball on a tube. But they say the channel, the little gap in between the organs and the tissues, that is the energy channel. But the thing that drives the energy of the meridian is collagen, which is a crystalline structure. And we have to have collagen, not just to pump up our faces and make us look younger, but to drive this energetic channel of our meridian. So we are walking, talking bags of mainly water, as they used to say on Star Trek, but we also have the chemicals and the crystals that help our energy, our voltage to move around the body in the channels that are appropriate. And that keeps us going. And the structured water and salt, which is another crystal. That makes up the electricity of our body. Okay, so I talk about that a little bit on some of my instructional videos. So if you go to annmerkel.com /instructional videos, you can see some of these things. And I highlighted that. And so you might, I know there's a whole stress management series and several other things that you can find there. I was an NET practitioner, neuro-emotional technique, that I learned with a bunch of chiropractors, including my ex-husband, years and years ago. And they told me I couldn't tell anybody that I was trained in that because I wasn't a health doctor. I was just a PhD at that time. And so I was practicing it, but then I went back when I had my naturopath and they said, okay, now you can talk about it. But what they said was there's so many times when people come to the chiropractor week after week after week and they have a good adjustment. They go home, they're all straight, and they come back the next week with the same problem. I said, well, there's more to it than this. What kind of environment are you walking back into? What kind of diet are you using? What's going on here that we can't help your body fix itself? And basically that's when they said, well, it's got to be emotional then. So Scott Walker is the chiropractor that came up with this technique, and he was also an acupuncturist. And so he started teaching chiropractors and other kinds of doctors how to look at and evaluate a body, and some of it's muscle testing, but it's looking at where a weakness is in a body and then identifying what kind of emotion it is and where are you holding it and what's causing it, and then helping to clear that. And so that is all meridian based, but it is so dynamite and it works so well and people get well so quickly. And so I do that. I don't do a chiropractic adjustment, but I can ask the body, is your problem, once we've cleared the emotional component, all right, do you want structural support now? Do you want chemical support? Change diet or get homeopathic? Do you, is it emotional? So we'll just do the meridian work. So you can ask the body and it'll tell you exactly what it needs. And that's a technique that a lot of chiropractors and naturopaths know how to use. And more psychologists are learning how to use it because they're learning that there's such a big physical component too, that it goes way beyond talk therapy. So I found then EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. Beyond that, I was looking for something I could use on myself because NET requires a practitioner to facilitate. And I wanted to use it, but I couldn't do it on myself. But you can do all kinds of things with meridians to move the energy. You can trace them backwards or forwards to speed them up or to slow them down. There's a whole little dance that the layperson's um, Touch for Health, I think that's what it is, the layperson's applied kinesiology program, where there's this little dance that you do to balance all your meridians. I don't know how to do it, but it amps up and it balances your meridians. Touch for Health is another modality. The homeopathic remedies, which are what I use a lot, and flower essences, which just have the energetic footprint of the natural aspect. It's not the herb itself, it's the energetic profile of that. You've probably heard me on another talk about every illness, every condition has a vibration, and vibrations move in waves, right? So a homeopathic or any kind of energy remedy will match that vibration in the opposite way, and it will neutralize it. And that's what it does. It doesn't mask it. It works with it so that it gently coaxes it to come back to the baseline. So, that's the magic of homeopathy and flower essences. And if you use them right, they are amazing. Okay. Then we've got your body tools. Those were energy tools, your body tools. Massage. How many of you have had a massage this month or this week? I was getting them once a week for a while, and now I'm down to once a month or so. So they're really good, but you got to know how to work with your massage therapist, and talk to that person about what's good for your body and what isn't so good for your body. And the tools that your massage therapist uses, make sure that your body fits with them. I tore my retina by having my face in a massage face thing. And, so you got to kind of watch what feels comfortable to your body. Cranial sacral is really good. But it has to be done by somebody that really knows what they're doing. Because, if your neck's out, then your pelvis is going to be out kind of the opposite direction, and they need to be fine-tuned. Okay, of course, chiropractic, healing touch, Reiki, Rolfing. I had a chiropractor friend of mine tell me, and when I had to go to him after being Rolfed, he said, your body can't handle Rolfing. It's too sensitive. So, know how much your body can take. The far infrared lights, you've got different kinds of spectrums of frequency of light therapies. Know which ones are good for you. And physical therapy. Now, I've known a lot of friends that are physical therapists, and I'd rather go to a chiropractor or a massage therapist. That's just my choice. Physical therapy to me is really rough and it hurts too much. And so I will choose those other modalities for this body. But some, obviously a lot of people swear by physical therapy. Body talk is another modality. How many of you have ever heard of body talk? That is a modality that uses your meridians, but it uses your energy system, where the practitioner goes back generations and identifies the earliest time when something, usually an emotional or a traumatic event, has stuck in the body. And what you're bringing forward, all these maybe generations later, and can clear it energetically. It's really amazing stuff. And, you can get into past lives if you believe in that, or just go back generations, but it works and you can use it on your pets and it works for them. So, body talk, there are practitioners that are all at different levels and that can be really helpful. The Eden energy medicine people, Donna Eden has trained a lot of people and they do a lot of really good work with the body's energy and managing the body's energy levels. There are electrostimulation treatments, there are light therapies, and there are just so many different things that we can utilize to support our bodies, but using energy too. Okay, and we mentioned before the input that we are in charge of, the diet, the nutrition, enzymes, feeding our gut bugs with probiotics or prebiotics, and getting the right supplements. As a doctor, I can order any kind of supplement I want. I have a dispensary. I have every brand out there. I can pick and choose. And I have used myself as a guinea pig for so many years. And I couldn't take any of the stuff on the market. And what the problem was most of it was synthetic. And my body was getting more and more sensitive and saying, no, I want the real thing. And so finally, I found it, and that's the brand that I choose and I share with other people of supplements. Nutritional supplements is Global Energy. Or is it Global Healing?
Global
Global Healing.
healing. Uh-huh.
Global Healing. Yeah. And they have put lots of time and energy into creating non-GMO, usually organic, based with structured water, good, real food, non-synthetic formulations.
Yeah, they're really high quality. I've toured their facility. They have both a Aqua Energizer whole house device installed and a 220 tower in their lobby. And that's just part of what they do. They play solfeggio frequencies and they really tend to the quality of their formulations like no others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And of course, the helpful tools that you can have are the cosmic towers, the light, the saunas and the far infrared devices, light therapies, of biogeometry, lots of different things. Now, I told you a couple energetic stories already, but I want to throw in a couple more before we end. How many of you have ever been told by somebody in a white coat that you're going to be sick for this amount of time, or this is going to lead to this, or this is the only way to treat something? Or how many of you have known somebody that that were told, oh, you only have 2 or 3 weeks to live, and in 2 or 3 weeks that person died? Yeah. So there's a lot of power in being told something by an authority figure. And that could be a doctor, that could be a minister, that could be a news broadcaster, that could be a government official, that could be a teacher. And, so it's really important. A therapist, I've had several different clients that have been told things by mental health, therapists that they believe, and it's become their story. And whether it's true or not, it is their story now, because their therapist told them that was what it was. I had my cousin's husband was a young man, was physically fit, was in great shape, and he was starting a business and he wanted to get insurance for his business and his employees. And they said, well, take a physical for your insurance. he took a physical and somebody came back and said, oh, you've got a liver issue and it's really, really serious. You need a liver transplant. He went, what? I feel fine. And so they put him on a transplant list and they told him he couldn't exercise anymore and, et cetera, et cetera. And he ended up dying because they told him that's what was going to happen. I don't even know if he ever had a diagnosis. It's so powerful that we have to all be aware and guard our loved ones, but also just be aware for ourselves. Okay. I've got a lot of people that come in and they have this boogeyman that their subconscious mind won't let them go back to an old trauma as a child. And that is a protective method that the mind, does support. And it's important that we don't go visit that, because if you've got post-traumatic stress, there's part of you that subconsciously really believes if you go back to that old story or that feeling, you're going to die. So it's really difficult getting back to them. But when the issue happened to somebody else, or it was a young child watching a really violent movie and it wasn't their situation at all, but it was a character on a movie, but they took it in like a sponge, because that's what children do until they're 10 or 12 years old, as their own situation. That's energy. That becomes their story. And so when you know that, that is something that, one can carry with them until somebody goes, oh, did you watch movies with your parents? Did they limit what you watched? Do you ever have dreams about, there are different ways to get into this kind of stuff. There's another thing. I have a lot of clients that come with physical issues. And when I get to know their case better, I find out that a family member had that same condition. And we're not talking hereditary, we're not talking genetics. We're talking this person was around the energy of like psoriasis or this or that. And they hated it. They didn't like it. It was embarrassing to them when they saw their mother with it. And then as an adult, there they are with it. And that can, you could say, well, they're detoxing because that's what psoriasis is. And, you got an allergy that your mother had too. Well, maybe. But once I've cleared the energy of you really hated that on your mother, it really made an impact. So let's clear that. Then the psoriasis on on my client's body disappears. So again, this is the power of the mind in this sense, but also association. I think, Marcia, you and I were talking about caretakers issues last week or last month, and how important it is to understand that there's a frequency of physical conditions. And if we're a caretaker, we got to make sure that we're not going to pick up that frequency and start suffering the same way the people we're taking care of might be suffering. Okay. So there are just so many stories I could tell you, but are there any questions about energy, about power, about voltage of the body, about the different mind body, spirit connections, all the different levels? I mean, we've covered a lot. I know for a lot of you, this was all just review, but hopefully it was shared in a way that gave you a little bit of a different twist or a different story to plug it on. Any comments, questions? Did it bring up any old stories or anything?
Appreciate the depth of what you shared, Anne.
Well, I hope that it sheds some light for all of you on that, and that you will find it helpful, just as a reminder that we are so powerful and we really shouldn't allow anybody to put us in a box with everybody else. We need to really understand our bodies and listen to our bodies and speak that language and help, do the dance with the body. All right. So, well, thank you all for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks, everybody. And
Thank
yeah, we'll see you next month. Look forward
you.
to it.
Yes.
Yay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right.
Thank
For
you.
now, everybody.